Hey, and welcome back to the number one podcast in the world, the Cellarcast, episode 107. Oh god, I just said last episode that it's 107, that I don't have to do this anymore, that I don't have to check, but I do. No counting. I've had a pretty okay week leading up to this, kind of one of those weirdly uneventful ones where time kind of passes before you realize it. A lot of that has to do with my sleep being a little weird and wonky. Now I'm waking up at like 4 a.m. for some reason. But we had the most notable things that happened to me this week was, we saw a couple movies. We went to go see Asteroid City on the 4th of July because my family wasn't doing anything, and Kat was like, you can come over to my place and we could do something. So we went to go see Asteroid City with some friends, the new Wes Anderson movie. And I'll talk about that in a second, but during the film, my my earbuds, the case for my earbuds fell out of my pocket, and I was like, snatched them up from the ground, put them back in my pocket. Then on the way back, when I was waiting at the bus stop, I realized, one of them fell out. So that's cool. I should probably go call up the theater or something and ask them if they have a lost and found or someone found something. But I haven't done that yet because I'm dumb, I guess. It wasn't the total end of the world because I do have a backup pair that I haven't thrown out yet, that have just been laying around my room. Not of the same brand, but of how many people are going to roll their eyes when they hear this? For a number of years, from like, I want to say senior year of high school, I think that's when I got them. So like around 2019. So for a couple years, I was using a pair of Raycon earbuds. That's right, baby. Not sponsored. Partially because they haven't reached out to me. Partially, I also don't think they're going to reach out to me after this because I'm going to trash them. So I saw the ads for Raycons back when I was in high school, and I was like, I should try those out. It was like my birthday or something. I'll spend a little money on myself, which I rarely do, and I'll use a creator code, one of those discount codes. So I got them, and I was like, these are pretty good. And I always heard people talking about how they were bad until for the longest time. And I was like, I don't think they're that bad. Like, I don't really get the hate for them. So about a couple months ago, I decided that I would, because they were just getting kind of old. The case had actually, the lid broke off of the case. Thankfully, it still attaches magnetically, even though like the hinge is broken off. But so it can actually close properly. But yeah, so I decided, why don't I just buy some new ones? So I got these, what are they called? Jabras, which is like a kind of like a mid-budget Bluetooth earbuds. And I tried them out, and I was like, yeah, no, they're fine. I don't know if there's too much of a difference between them. And I was actually a little disappointed with the supposed improvement that because I did a bunch of research into like, what's the best one from like a year or two ago? Because I'm looking to be frugal. So I was using those for the longest time, and then now, for the last couple months, and then one of them is missing now, so I still have this backup pair of Raycons laying around my room. So I've been using them the past couple days, and oh wow, the difference! I can't believe I didn't hear the difference before. It's weird because going from the Raycons to the Jabras, for some reason wasn't too strange, but going the other way, whoa. So one thing that I'd heard about Raycons, that like from the audiophile kind of like that camp of criticisms of them, is that they just pump the bass super high on the EQ. The bass is super jacked up, and I must, maybe I just I can't really tell or something. going back to them, holy shit, I can tell. And you know why? It's because there is this weird phenomenon where I'm listening to them, and maybe it's like a weird interaction between them and like the audio drivers on my phone. I have got no idea. When I go out for a walk or something, that's when I use the wireless earbuds. Maybe it's something like that, but I'm pretty sure it's the balancing of the earbuds themselves. Because when I go out, there's this balance between, let's say, like volume 3 and 4. Excuse me. And 3 is almost inaudible. So quiet. I can barely hear anything. I bump it up one notch to like volume 4, blows out my fucking eardrums. It's so goddamn loud. Because if you look at the chart, if you look at the graph, the bass is 4 times higher or something. It's like 4 times higher than the rest of the mix. Meaning that whenever you increase the volume, you're increasing it by like, you're not increasing it evenly, you're increasing part of the song by like 4 times, and it fucking hurts my ears. So it's either that or whisper quiet. Any higher and it's like, it's way too loud, and any lower is silence. So I'm like, fuck, I really wish I could go back to the Jammers. And there's no EQ, there's no like app. The Jammers have their own proprietary app, right? They have their own app that you can change the EQ and the balancing on it to be how you like it. Raycons don't got those. They don't got those. So I've been working with that. Also, the other day on Friday, then when I went over to Cats again, and I was gonna maybe. There was like. Kat's mom dropped me off by the bus stop, and I was like, should I just walk to like the movie theater because it's sort of close? And then I was like, nah, because the bus was pulling up, and I was like, nah, I'll just walk. I'll just go to take the bus and call later. I don't feel like waiting. Although the walk would have been long enough that it wouldn't have really cost me. Whatever. I kind of regret the decision now, partially because that bus was the worst smelling bus ride I've been on in the years of me taking the bus. In all the time, wow. Holy shit. I don't know who was in front of me, but I was downwind from someone who just reeked of like molding vegetables. You know that? If you've ever been around that smell, molding vegetables and like fruits, that stench just constantly wafting over me. I fucked up. I didn't bring a mask because COVID's been over for a bit. I didn't bring a mask, but I really should have. I learned that's the secret tech, is to wear a mask because it blocks the stench out. And makes bus ride. There are bus rides I would have gotten straight up like sick on, if not for wearing a mask, because the smell on it it's so bad. It's so bad. So I got home, dude. When I stepped out of the bus, it was, I was at the station, and I was breathing in fucking gas chemical fumes, and I was like, oh, it's like fresh air. I got home, and dude, I had to like take a shower to get it off of me, and then I threw my clothes into the like a little laundry basket that I have in my room. And hours later, I was still smelling it after I'd taken a shower and everything. So I had to walk over and take those clothes because they were laying on the top of the pile. I had to bury them at the bottom because they reeked so fucking bad. It was like I got cursed with the smell. With the stinky Smelly. It's like when you piss off a Smash player, they put a curse on you. They put a hex. So that's been my week. Smelly. We didn't have any comments, questions last time. So I figured I would open with a little story like that. Anyway, I have the bare scraps of news stories that I feel like talking about today. Primarily the first one being the story from metro.co.uk. It says Capcom's looking to bring back Onimusha and Megaman. Now here's the thing. I don't care about Onimusha, but I do care about Megaman. I'm a certified Megaman enjoyer. Probably one of my favorite things. So this just came from, there was a Q&A with around their showcase. They did a showcase recently, and they did a Q&A where there was a bunch of different questions. Some people asked about, like, hey, what about Onimusha and Sengoku Basara? And they gave these sorts of like, well, we're always looking into discussions. What is it? We are carrying out discussions regarding the future expansion of these titles so they can be enjoyed by a wide audience, like whatever. And then someone asked them about Mega Man, and they gave this much more detailed response. Including Mega Man 11, the latest entry in the franchise, Mega Man is one of Capcom's historic IPs and is loved by fans, and as such, we want to take care in how we develop the series. We are considering how to approach the production of new entries in the series, which requires numerous factors, including the development of a solid game. So it's like a very weirdly different answer, right? And in my mind, this is developer speak for just hang on. Hey, just hang on. Those other ones, that's like, maybe like in the future we don't have anything planned right now, but hey, maybe we'll throw like a port if someone really wants to like spearhead that in the company. We might throw a port out or like a little collection some point. You know, the Mega Man ones did pretty well. Then they asked them about Mega Man, and they're like, well, we care a lot about Mega Man and we want to take our time with it. Hey, remember Rockman Tyson? What happened? That thing that was in the Capcom leak. Let's see. Yeah. Nothing like, unless the Rockman Tyson, that was probably just, in my opinion, that was just a, I wouldn't be surprised at all if that was just a working title for like a random app, or maybe a collection of some sort. Yeah. If there was going to be a new Mega Man game, there's a lot of options, right? There's a lot of options. What would be the most preferable to me? I think the one that I would want the most, I'm okay if we don't really get any more classic series games. I'm okay with that. I know that's certain people's favorites, but I feel like there's been enough. And 11 was good. I thought 11 was really good. But I don't need another one again, even if there's a cool new gameplay concept. If you asked me personally, the most what I'd want is I just want an X9. Because X9 or some kind of new ZX game. I think a new ZX game would be really cool. Have I gushed about Mega Man ZX yet on this podcast? If so, I'm going to do it again. So Mega Man ZX was these series of, it was only two, ZX and ZX Advent, that came out on the DS. And they're basically, it's such a cool concept. When did they come out? I want to say the like 2000, like late 2000s. Mega Man, not Megan, Mega Man ZX. It was 2007. Yeah, 2007 was the first game. 2006, around that time. So the idea was, the best way that I can pitch it to people, and I know this is extremely cliche, but this is a really apt comparison. This is a really apt sell on it. It's a Mega Man Dark Souls. The structure of the game is essentially, it's like a 2D world, but with all these interconnected areas that you pass through, sort of in much the same way that, you know, like a world in like a Metroid game is connected via doors and elevators and stuff like that. And instead, essentially, the idea was, well, we've got the Mega Man series, and in those, traditionally in Mega Man, Mega Man X, Mega Man Zero, you just pick, you get a spread of levels, and then you just pick which level you want to go to from the screen. What if instead it was all one cohesive world that was joined, and you went to different areas, and those different, instead of having separate levels, it was all part of one world, and you traveled to each of the different areas individually, and they all linked together, and there were shortcuts and secret paths and stuff in little hub areas, and then you would fight a boss once you got to the end of that level, that area, that section. And then you get their ability, and it helps you traverse in other parts of the world. Isn't that so cool? And yeah, it is really cool. I've seen a lot of people say that it was like meh. Personally, I really like those games. I think they're really cool. I think you should. It's definitely worth checking out. And they're part of the Mega Man. It was the Mega Man Zero ZX collection, so you can go pick that. That collection's actually insane, because the Mega Man Zero games are fucking incredible, and the ZX games themselves, I think, are also really, really cool. That's such a good buy now that I think about it. It's so worth it, especially with all the. I'm pretty sure it comes with a bunch of like concept art and stuff like that. It's such a convenient way to play those games. I would totally if you get the Zero ZX collection, you have so many games to play. You have so much game time, like seriously. And ZX Advent, the second game, ends on a cliffhanger, unfortunately. And I believe there were at some point a concept for a third game called like ZXC. That just never kind of came together. This was around the time that Inafune left, and they didn't know what to do with it, with the franchise, and also oversaturation, and just Mega Man ran into a lot of problems after the 2000s. But I think that would be a really cool concept to go back to for a sequel, namely because the genre of like Souls likes has been so much more fleshed out and developed at this point. I think keeping that like 2D Souls like idea with the Mega Man concepts thrown in, like copying boss abilities, using them to like traverse the environment, just maybe fleshing it out a little bit more. You could make a really cool game out of that concept, with lessons that have been learned over years of this genre developing out. I think that would be cool. X9 would also be a great pick, because it has, well, X8 ends on a cliffhanger. I just think it would be cool to do X9. I think if they were really gonna wrap up, I've always had this like I'm gonna talk about my stupid little Mega Man fan concept for a second. I always thought it would be really cool to do a game set in the Elf Wars, which is, if you don't know about Mega Man lore, the Elf Wars sounds like the dumbest thing you've ever heard, but it's kind of neat. It's basically the bridge of stuff that happens in between the X and the Zero games, where these little fuckers called cyber elves get invented, and they're like these digital beings that can manifest like in reality. It's really weird. It's never really made super clear what they are or what they're made of, but they're like little sprites, and they're digital, and they're made of light, and they have thoughts and personalities, maybe, kind of. Some of them do, more so than others. And they have powers, and they are actually can be super powerful. And there's a whole big war that breaks out. It's like nukes getting invented, essentially. This new method of this new power being invented is of cyber elves. And that sets up for Mega Man Zero, and that's what takes place in between games. That's why Zero is in a capsule at the beginning of Mega Man 01. And that's why X is like a weird ghost, because he's a cyber elf now. He's like a spirit because he's Jesus. Remember that Mega Man X is like a Jesus parallel? Isn't that fucking weird? Isn't that weird? But once you look into it, there's all of this stuff where, oh no, he's totally a Jesus allegory. It's really odd. Fuck, it's such a weird part of Mega Man lore. I love that X is Jesus, though. It's great. I think it would be fun to do a game set in the Elf Wars, to just like close the book on the X series, because I don't think you need to do many more X games. I would rather just like, I don't know, close up some of those series, do a Legends 3. That's what everyone else wants. I haven't played the Legends games, so I can't really attest to how cool that would be. But I know that a lot of people would like those. Would like it to get some kind of a wrap up. There's so many good concepts you could do with Mega Man, man. Mega Man, comma, man. And then, honestly, I just like something new. I think something new would be cool. New concept, new idea. I think it would be great to do some kind of crossover game that wasn't X Dive, because the gameplay in X Dive is kind of boring to me. To be honest, I tried to play it. It kind of fell off after like 3 days. Like, oh, I actually don't really enjoy this that much. Really crazy how, I don't know if I mentioned this, but yeah, that game got sunsetted in the best possible way you could ever do for a mobile game. So Mega Man X Dive, that whole like gacha game crossover Mega Man mobile title, was running for a couple years. Shit, man. That came out when I was in high school. Jesus, it's been a long time. And I guess it made some money for Capcom, but not enough for them to keep it going. So they shut it down recently. But in the process of shutting it down, decided to take the game in its final state and just throw it up onto Steam. And I want to say Switch or something like that, or something. Maybe not. It's at least on Steam as Rockman X Dive Offline, which is just the game, again, in its final state with all of its content, but free. And instead of gacha game mechanics to unlock stuff, it's just like it's just been altered so that there's like just an unlock progression thing. Okay, cool. That's surprisingly thoughtful, and like you care about the property. It's in a weird way a lot more caring of your game than I think I've seen any other publisher do when they've killed their game off. That's why I referred to it as being sunsetted, because you can still go play it, just not, I guess you just can't do like the online auto battle PvP shit anymore. Pretty sure it was auto battle. I'm not. That's what a lot of gacha games do. Isn't that strange? In any event, yeah. God, I want Mega Man back. I want new Mega Man. I want him. Another funny little story. Sega has officially given up on blockchain. This comes from game. Someone just slammed a door. This comes from Games Radar, courtesy of Anne-Marie Ostler. So, Sega, a couple years ago, when this was the new hotness, came out and was like, yeah, dude, NFTs are fucking awesome, dude. That's going to be in all our games. Isn't that so cool? Isn't that going to make us so much money? And you looked at them like, well, what does it do for me as a consumer? What are you talking about? It's going to make us money. It makes us money. It's not about you, idiot. So, Speaking to Bloomberg, Sega's co-chief operating officer, Shuji Utsumi, reveals that the company is abandoning plans to create its own blockchain games for the foreseeable future. Quote, "The action in play-to-earn games is boring," Utsumi tells Bloomberg. "What's the point if games are no fun?" Which is awesome. This has always been a problem that I've felt with that's like looming in the back of any of these quote-unquote play-to-earn games, which is, okay, play-to-earn. What does that mean? Playing the game earns you currency. Well, if that's the case, it's just going to be like World of Warcraft, where people are going to set up bots to just automatically, like, fish or something at the one spot that's mathematically guaranteed to give you a steady stream of income per hour. So, like, is that what you want your game to be? Just people setting up bots? Well, no. Well, if you don't want it to be that, then you have to actually add some element of, like, mandatory user input. You have to actually make it kind of skill-based. You have to add some sort of skill. That means you're actually locking out a bunch of fucking normies who don't know how to play video games. Or who don't know how to play the specific genre that your game is. So you're in this weird situation where the only incentive people would have to play your game is that they can make money off of it. But if it's like, you know, if there was like a crypto fighting game thing, well, maybe Rooflemonger would make a lot of money off of YouTube views. But like, it's shutting out such a huge potential. It's so weird and dumb because no matter what you do, you're kind of forced to make a product that alienates some amount of the market of people who would be interested in making money off of playing a video game. Either that, or you have to make it like mandatory user input, but the gameplay is so shallow and boring that the game just fucking sucks. It's like a complete conflict of interest. It is so, maybe you could pull it off, but it's so difficult to hit the balance of a game that is appealing enough to pull in people who are not like gamers, who are like regular people, but also enough of a real game to, I don't know, encourage people to stick around for anything but the monetary incentive. Blockchain games are doomed to be the most extravagant hamster wheels in the world. It's just a hamster wheel with a bunch of flashing lights and Subway Surfers gameplay footage in front of you to keep you motivated and from falling asleep. That's what it inevitably comes back to when you completely compromise any kind of like artistic fulfillment in the player with a monetary incentive. Nonsense, absolute nonsense. I'm so glad that this trend is. I am so proud of us as a society and as a culture that we killed this shit in like 2 years. I remember sitting at GDC 2022, I want to say, and so when I was at GDC and we had the whole exhibit where you could come and stop by and play games, I spent a lot of time on the Street Fighter 2 machine. Well, not the machine. We had a console set up. It was like a SNES SF2. New Challengers, ew, the worst version. And I would like, so there was this thing. There's this thing where people would sit down to play with me because I was just going at it on SF2. People would sit down to play with me, and I would try to suss out very quickly how good they were at the game. And if I could tell that they were kind of just mashing buttons and they were super casuals, I would go easy, and I would not fuck them up with like knockdown into like 4-way mix kind of shit that you can just do in any fighting game if you understand the concept of like empty jumps and basic Oki. I would just not go as hard because like we're just playing around. They're at a convention. They're stopping by to have fun. I don't want to just ruin their day by going try hard on them and making them feel bad. So you kind of let them win. You sort of ease off the gas a little bit, you know? And I would generally do that. Sometimes people would sit down and you could tell that, oh, they were actually more experienced and they knew what they were doing. And that was really fun because we both got to kind of play for real. And also neither of us were really that familiar with that stuff too. So it was kind of like a really fun, even I So that was cool. And then, but also, you know, just playing with people who were just sort of casuals was also fun because you I don't know, you got to see them having fun. And you're like, nice, cool. I'm glad you're enjoying it. So at one point, this guy sits down next to me, and I if you remember my podcast from when I went to GDC, you'll remember that there was a gross amount of blockchain presence at the conference. Really, no one who was really a developer there liked it. No, the only people who were for it were people who were specifically blockchain devs who were trying to advertise their shit, or people who were there who were just blockchain shills. So this dude sits down next to me, and we start playing, and he's like a 30-year-old guy. And the thing about 30-year-old guys who say they love Street Fighter is that they're actually bad at Street Fighter because they played it when they were a kid, and they never really kept up with it or decided to get better, which is fine and totally normal. And actually, I'm the weirdo for caring about it. So I immediately, again, in like 10 seconds, sussed out, okay, this guy doesn't really know how to like play fighting games. He's just kind of mashing. So you kind of like, you know, you ease up on the gas and you go easy on them. And then like 1 or 2 rounds in, I ask him, so hey, what are you at GDC for? Because I think, you know, so I was like, hey, you know, so we're here for just like the museum. What are you at GDC for? And he said, oh, I'm here. I'm like an influencer, and I'm covering. We're covering Web3 here at the conference, and about how it's like, it's really the future, and we're trying to cover it here. And I said, oh, cool. And then I fucking immediately started fucking his shit up. I did not waste a second with like, I'm gonna knock you down. I'm gonna do like a 4-way mix-up. I'm just going to loop Oki on you over and over, and I'm going to throw your ass 5 times in the corner. I'm going to bully the fuck out of you in this video game. Because you're into blockchain. Is that mean of me? Is that mean? You know, when people say, you know, bring bullying back for blockchain shills. That's what I say. I'm so glad that nowadays it's basically a footnote, and no one cares about it anymore, because hey, guess what? It was not the future. You know what is the future? Federated networks, which has been on my mind recently because the Threads just launched, and it's supposedly going to be federated at some point. It's not. They don't even have. It's just like a single instance right now. They don't actually have an ActivityPub instance yet, so they're not actually compatible with anything like Mastodon or something like that, which is the main one that I think they're trying to be compatible with. I don't trust that shit at all. I don't trust the big corporate interests trying to get into the federated space. I think that it's always. I don't even really trust Blue Sky, partially maybe it's like less. I can't tell what's better or worse, right? Because Blue Sky, which if you don't know is Jack Dorsey, the original creator of Twitter's new project, which is just Twitter again. Because I think he says he regretted selling it, so he's made this new project called Blue Sky, and it is also federated in some sense, but it uses its own protocol called AT and not ActivityPub. So it's AT, not AP. So it's not like cross-compatible with anything else, and I'm not sure what the reason for that is besides just wanting to be proprietary. So I don't trust that already. but it also means that it doesn't really have a chance to muscle in on the space of existing places like Mastodon or Pleroma. So there's that. Threads I trust much less because they have some plans to be Mastodon compatible in the future, and what a lot of people on Lemmy and Caban have been talking about recently, it's been a big buzz, is the worst case scenario suspicions about what the big Zuck's plans are, which, as a lot of people suspect, and what I kind of suspect honestly, is that the idea is to be Mastodon compatible, federate with a bunch of Mastodon instances so that you have a bevy of existing content to pull off of on Threads. Everyone just makes their thing on like an account on Threads, and then you there's a three-part process. It's called embrace, extend, or expand, extinguish, which is what Microsoft. It's a strategy that they have employed in the past with certain technologies and products, where they enter a space, make it very easy to switch over to their thing, and they make it super compatible with all the stuff that you're already using in that space. Then they add a bunch of functionality to their thing, so you're like, wow, this is embedded in my life now. And then they cut off compatibility with everything else. And then they basically they colonize your shit. They colonize your technology is what it is. It's the triple E, the E3 strategy. Embrace, expand, extinguish. And that's the suspicion and fear that's been going around on the FedNets about what Threads is. Whether or not personally, I think that it's just because Mastodon is the only real competitor to Twitter in some way, even though, again, Mastodon is not a website. It's not a website, it's just a software. But Mastodon has been very forward with having, like, official instances, quote-unquote, and Zuck is really buddy-buddy with the admins on those instances, which is a little sussy, in my opinion. So I have there's been a big push, essentially, for owners of larger instances to defederate preemptively from Threads if it ever becomes possible, and they actually, launch an ActivityPub protocol instance. Excuse me. That was a weird burp. Basically, to defederate from them preemptively, so that you cut them off from basically make it an island, so that it doesn't encroach on the independent federated space. I've been having a great time, actually. I've been having a really good time switching over to primarily just using federated networks. There's a couple communities on Reddit that I still want to keep up with, but like I said, there's like bots that can just repost from there, so it's been pretty seamless. I've been using an app called Connect for Lemmy, which is very similar to a third-party Reddit app that I used called Infinity, which was just a very stripped-back, minimalist Reddit reader that I liked a lot. Very clean, simple interface, and just give me the basics. And Connect is very, like, even in layout, visually, if you were to look at them side by side, very similar, seemingly inspired by it. And it's been a pretty seamless experience. The in-app, like, browser, if I just have to go over to, if I want to, like, read the comments on a Reddit thread that's been reposted via the RSS bot. Excuse me. Pretty clean, like, easy to use. It's just like a tap, and I'm on Reddit, and then I can close it out, and I'm all in the same app, and it's very convenient. So the experience has been pretty seamless. It's been pretty smooth. I've been considering creating a replacement, because I've been using Twitter less and less. Using a replacement, creating a new account for the seller. I've had like a little personal account on FGC.network, which I've been using to just, check out stuff here and there. But I was thinking of maybe just sort of looking for maybe a larger instance so that I can put that's a little more general, so that I can make a seller account on it and then, I don't know, advertise that. Because I have stuff that's like, I want to post a funny thing, and then I'm like, but I don't want to use Twitter. I've been so turned off from Twitter in the last couple weeks. I was never even that into Twitter to begin with, but from using it at all, yeah, I've been pretty turned off from it. Yeah. Anyway, we're going to move on. Sega's not doing Web3 anymore. I played a really cute little puzzle game recently. Not too many games. I haven't played too many games recently. Just because I've I don't know, been in that kind of like frazzled, my sleep kind of state. But I did play a really cute little puzzle game called Hue. Hue, like the colors, Hue. It is this, oh God, it's like really short. It took me like 6 hours to get through. The premise of Hue is that the whole game is it's this little side-scrolling kind of platformer where you're a little boy named Hugh, and everything is in monochrome. Everything is black and white. But you have a ring that lets you change the background color to one of however many. How many are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. About 8 different colors, eventually. You unlock more as you go through the game. Pretty rapidly. So essentially the main puzzle mechanic of the game is changing colors, because there are items in the world, basically interactable objects, like say a box. So the box will be, so by default you walk into a room and it's all gray, right? The background is this sort of gray sky sort of look. I don't know exactly how to describe it. Everything's discernible and distinguishable, but the solid unchanging things are going to be like black with little white outlines. There will be objects in the room that are colored. So for instance, blue. So there's like a blue crate, and you can push it around, you can hop on it and everything. It has gravity, it'll weigh down pressure plates, it'll block things, stuff like that. If you switch the background to be blue, so the crates, all the interactable objects, they have no outlines. So when you switch the background to be blue, the crate blends into the background and it literally ceases to exist. If you just see the visual effect, it's like it just gets absorbed into the color. And so it ceasing to exist has implications on puzzles and such. And it gets progressively more complicated the more colors that you get and stuff that you have to balance out. So like for instance, an example of a puzzle is just like a really simple one, like one of the first things you're asked to do. Excuse me. Is there's a rock. There's a big rock that you can't get through, and it's blue, and you just have to switch the background to blue so that you can cross it. Oh, okay. There's other rooms where I'm just trying to randomly look. There's some like really complicated puzzles that I remember from later on in the game. But it'll be something like, I'll just make one up. Let's say there's a green box and there's a pressure plate, and there's 2 doors. There's 2 doors to get to the exit that like will raise and lower. These doors raise and lower to get to the exit. If you weigh down the pressure plate, one of the doors slides up, but the other one slides down. And if there's nothing on the pressure plate, vice versa happens. So how would you solve it? You'd push like the green box over to the pressure plate so that one of the doors slides up. You walk through that, turn the background green, and then the crate ceases to exist. The plate lifts up, and then you walk through the other door, which opens. There's also a little bit more like quick on-the-fly color switching with stuff. Like, there's a couple moments in the game where there will be boulders falling of various colors, and there is no way to avoid them. You just have to react. And luckily, when you open up the little menu it's like a little radial menu around your character, time slows down. Like, really, like, it was never an issue for me that something happened too fast. But you gotta quickly switch between colors to essentially have them roll through you and stuff like that. The game was overall pretty easy, but near the end it got the difficulty of the puzzles got stepped up quite a bit. Just kind of like a short and sweet game. I enjoyed it quite a bit, and I would recommend it if it sounds fun or interesting to you. It has a very light little story that's mostly told through the goal is you're trying to find your mom, who has become invisible because she's blended into the background, much like the things in the game when you switch colors. So you're trying to find her, and most of the story is just given through these letters that she sends you that are read aloud while you're playing. And then, I don't know, some like little postulating on the idea of perception and seeing, only being able to see things within a certain color spectrum, and how things don't have like set colors necessarily, but it's just what we interpret. Some fun, neat little stuff. It's a cool game. I would recommend it. I had fun with it. It took me about 6 hours. Oh boy. So, on the 4th of July, I mentioned this at the top of the podcast, but Kat invited me to go see Asteroid City. Why did the name escape me for a second? I'm literally looking at it in my notes. Asteroid City with some friends. The new Wes Anderson movie. Now, I've only seen... Of his films, I've only seen The Fantastic Mr. Fox, which I saw that in theaters when it came out. So I was like a little kid. I was like 9 or something when that released. And I remember even at the time thinking, wow, this is really weird. This is a weird movie. Not weird in like, oh, it's so adult or anything, but it's a very different kind of film than anything else I'd really seen as a kid. Just and I don't even have that great of a memory of it. I remember it feeling long. How long is that movie? Because I remember just like, wow, it's still going. It feels like it's still going. It is... Just tell me how long it is. An hour and a half. Yeah, it's great. It's a really like I feel like there's a lot that happens in it. I feel like there's a lot that happens in that movie. And just like, oh, we're back and forth and as a plot, it was asking a lot of me as a... What year exactly did it come out? 2009? Holy, it came out 2009? I wasn't 9 years old. I was 7. Oh my god. Wow. Yeah, so as a 7-year-old, it was asking a lot of me to follow the plot, which I did. I could, but it was a lot. I was like, wow, that was a beefy movie. So that's the extent of my knowledge of Wes Anderson. And I'm aware that I probably like a lot of his movies. Kat said I would probably like a lot of his movies. Because she's a lot more familiar with his filmography. So he's got a new movie out called Asteroid City, and I liked it. I liked it quite a bit. I was curious what she thought of it, being, having seen more of his work. And she said that it was... What did she say? She said something along the lines of, there's no bad Wes Anderson movies. There's just ones that are less good than the other ones. And she said this was a pretty good Wes Anderson movie. So, by my metrics, that was a pretty good movie in general. It's really odd. I guess Okay, here's the thing. I was about to say that this is going to be like a spoiler thing because I love spoiling. Ooh, I just love spoiling. I just love spoiling things. But I feel like this movie is impossible to spoil. That was my first thought walking out of the theater. I don't know how I would describe it to somebody. Like, I would hate to be the editor for the trailer to this film. Because if you just handed that to me, I'd say, what am I supposed to tell? What am I supposed to communicate with this? Ostensibly, the film Asteroid City in our universe is about a dramatization of the production history of a fictional play called Asteroid City. So there's some layers going on here. There is the film that we are watching. There is which is the dramatization, and then the dramatization, which is a recreation of how a play was, the history of a play and how it was written and cast and all that, which includes just watching the play itself. So if you've seen any trailers for the movie, all the parts in color, that's technically the play that you're watching, or like the representation of it. And the film has these cuts, it has these transitions between acts outlining like what scenes are about to happen. And it kind of lays out basically the entire plot of the film, like in large part at the very start. And then the weird parts is all the stuff that happens, like all the details. So this movie is like a lot of just characters sort of doing things, and you're watching them do things. And you're not quite sure how it all fits together while you're watching it, and then at the end, you're still not quite sure how it fits together, but you get the sense that it does. I would describe the viewing experience of Asteroid City as being kind of like an aimless masturbation session. Like, you ever had one of those where you're just like kind of going from like one thing to the other, and you're not really looking for any particular type of stimulus or anything like that, stimulus in big quotes. You're just kind of like, see this one, watch this one, what's this one? And then by the end, you've finished, you've completed, and there wasn't any like build up really. It was just kind of like a lot of things happening, and then at the end you orgasmed. And that's kind of how this movie feels like to watch. And overall, it was rather pleasant, I couldn't, like, this, it was not, I couldn't tell if any of the scenes were really moving the plot forward, because there really isn't a plot, but every scene is enjoyable, if that makes sense. It's very weird. It's almost like aggressively weird, and it's like it's trying to be off-putting. It mainly, if you can say it follows anything, it follows a group of characters who are in Asteroid City. I guess I could talk about what the play in universe is about. Asteroid City is about a bunch of characters who come to this one location, this one town that's in the like southwestern United States. I want to say it's in Arizona. And it's basically like a tourist trap town with like a population of 80 or something like that. Because there's a big asteroid crater that hit the Earth like however million years ago, and there's a little like piece of asteroid debris still in there that's under a little like cage. And it's a little tourist attraction, and it's mostly just scientists out there. And like a guy at a hotel who runs the hotel, who is Steve Carell. This is one of those... calling them cameos is, I don't know, maybe selling it a little short. I feel like Wes Anderson is just at that point where he can just ask someone, hey, you want to like show up for one or two scenes in my movie? And they'll go, oh yeah, I'd love to be in a Wes Anderson movie. It sounds like fun. He's just kind of like that sort of phase of his career where people will just gladly be in a thing. Like the main character really is this guy named Augie, who's a war photographer, who is en route to it's like The mother, his wife has died, and he's taking her ashes with his son and 3 daughters to the wife's dad, who's Bill Murray. And they stop by Asteroid City because his son is a little brainiac, like, teenager. And he's there to, like, accept an award because he invented a thing that can project images on the moon. And so they stop there and their car breaks down. And they have a scene where they go to the mechanic, and the mechanic is just Bruce Campbell. And he's just the mechanic, and he has a couple scenes, and he's not a huge part of the movie. It's just that kind of thing. So they break down, and then for reasons everyone gets stuck in this town. There's all these different people. There's this actress who's played by Scarlett Johansson, and that's another layer, because she's an actress, right? So there's scenes where she and Augie are reciting the lines to a movie that she's in. So you're watching a movie that's a dramatization of a fictional play wherein characters are reciting the lines to a fictional movie. So there's a lot of the movie. If I could draw any kind of meaning from it, I would say, or any kind of interpretation, it seemed like it was really about how people use artwork to reflect their lives, and how the lines between art and reality get blurred. So there's all these little instances, for instance, is that awkward? Is that like awkward phrasing? I don't know. Leave a comment if that's awkward phrasing. You see the playwright. There's the two big figures outside of the play, who are not like the actors in it that you're watching in the movie play, are the screenwriter and the director. So the screenwriter, he writes the playwright. The playwright who's writing the script, and then the director, who's this guy who I think he's kind of going through some struggles. He's sort of washed up. He's looking for a big break, and he gets it with this with this play that becomes a huge sensation. And part of why he's on hard times is that he's getting a divorce from his wife, and you see him when he's getting a divorce. I think like she keeps the house or something, and he decides to just move into the theater company. So there's a scene where she walks in and she's like, what the fuck, what is going on? Also, you need to see me in court on this date. And he explains that, well, I live here at the theater company, and, you know, the costume department does my laundry, and the catering cooks my meals, and I sleep here on the sets, and all my needs are taken care of. And so that was kind of the scene where I started to sort of get the idea of what was happening, of like, oh, he's replacing things with this sort of not apparatus. What's the word I'm looking for? With a, let's just say a manufactured, a sound stage version of his life. So technically, there's not a single point in this entire movie where you see someone actually outside. I mean, they probably filmed the stuff, you know, of the play in like the desert or something, like all the color sections of the movie. They probably actually filmed that outside, I'm assuming. It would be interesting if it would. I would have to go look it up. But for the purposes of what you're watching, you are always looking at people on a stage. These stages that are facsimiles of the real world. There's never a point where you're actually looking at real things. And later on, there's a scene where the guy who's the actor who's playing Augie, not like actor to us, the actor in the dramatization who's playing Augie. See how fucking hard it is to talk about this movie? He has to, after a scene, he has to step off stage. And no, is it? What is it? Someone's got to do something. At one point, he has to go backstage to talk to the director, and like he asks him if he can open a window, but there's no windows. He can't open a window. if I'm remembering that correctly. So there's which is compared to a scene earlier in the film where he opens a window by punching a hole in the glass because the window's stuck. It's a very weird, funny movie with a lot of like silence. If you like scenes, if you think that the funniest thing in the world is two people staring at each other quietly, you're gonna like this movie. I think it's pretty funny, so I liked it. Yeah, it's an interesting. There's and as the film goes on, they progressively sort of start to blur the line between fiction and reality again. I really like this one bit where the actor for Augie steps out to get some fresh air, and he sees an actress. He sees the woman who was supposed to play his wife, whose scene got cut from the play. And he looks at her and he says, "Hey, you're the wife who played my actress." Just like this weird little bit of dialogue where it's almost like a Freudian slip of, what was what. Is the person the character? When you embody the character, is that person a part of you? When you are acting as a character, is that a different person, or are you like creating a new form of yourself to embody that? And it's fun. I don't know. It's a fun, weird movie. One thing that I really liked, I don't know if this was intentional. I feel like it was. A little touch, which is that there's a lot of like parent-child stuff in this film of when I say like literally like parents there with their children, because there's all these families here for like the Junior Scientists of the Future Awards or whatever it's called. So there's like 4 different families, and a lot of the kids don't look anything like their parents, which I thought was really funny. Like Augie, the main character, looks nothing like his son. There's one of the kids is like brown. He looked like Indian to me. He looked Indian or like Asian in that way. And his dad is just like a white guy. And this is supposed to take place in the 1950s in America. So what's the likelihood that he's like adopted? Or like a mixed race kid? I feel like it's pretty low. And to me, that was like Augie's kids look nothing like him. And that's like a running theme throughout the film. And in my mind, that's because when you go to see a play, that stuff's just normal. Because the casting process for like a stage play is very different from like a movie in most cases. In a stage play, they'll just have people of completely different races who are supposed to be blood related to each other. They look nothing alike. The only film that I can think of that has taken on that kind of like stage play style of casting, like they don't do that in regular. I say regular, but like in screen on the screen for whatever reason. I guess it breaks your sense of immersion where it doesn't as much in a play, or we're just used to it on stage. And the only thing that I can think of that's ever done something like that is this movie, Asteroid City, which I thought was a fun touch, and the Fast and Furious series, in which Dominic Toretto's family are all completely different races. So I really appreciated that in the Fast and Furious series, they made sure that they really wanted to add a very, like Shakespearean element to it. Paul Walker's character, he's a lot like Yorick, that kind of thing. I just came up with that bit on the spot. I can't develop it any further. But Asteroid City, cool movie. Fucking impossible to spoil. Like, if I told you, I could tell you the reason why they're stuck in the town. I guess I won't, just because it's kind of funny. I could tell you the reason. It changes almost nothing. Like, well, technically it does. Like, it's the reason they're all locked in the town. But, like, it's barely acknowledged. Like, they barely do anything with it or explain it at all. It's about on par. Excuse me. Like, it's about as important as like, oh, or they could have replaced it with like everyone ran out of gas. The gas shipment isn't going to get here for a week. Something like that. Like that. That's about as in-depth as they go on it. But I don't know, it ties into some themes about like our purpose and our meaning. There's a couple characters who question what their purpose in life is and religion and all that. And I don't know. It's a cool movie. I liked it. I liked it quite a bit. I had a good time, except for losing my earbuds. And then lastly, is this going to be a short podcast? A rare short podcast? Let's see. We continued our Nickelodeon marathon. We spun the wheel and we landed on the Paw Patrol movie. The Paw Patrol movie, guys. So I forgot that this was a thing. I rarely think about the Paw Patrol. I don't come into contact with it very often at all, except for maybe a little funny meme here and there about it. Mainly like a just like a tongue-in-cheek, ironic defund the Paw Patrol meme. I know nothing about this. We got to get through it. We've committed this far. Oh, we were going to watch a movie. What we initially landed on, we were going to watch a movie called Mad Hot Ballroom, which I kept thinking it was called Mad Hot Ballsack. Mad Hot Musty Ass Ballsack, which is a documentary about inner city ballroom dancing that like traumatized a couple kids. Like they fucking came in and showed them the movie and were like, we're going to do a 10-week ballroom dancing course. Fucker. You're going to sit here and you're not going to sit here. You're going to get up and dance, dude. You're going to get ballroom dancing. Which sounds fucking... I would just walk out. I would just leave the room. I'm not putting up with that. Fuck you. What is this, England? What am I, a little Victorian child and you want to culture me? Shut up. So we couldn't find Mad Hot Ballroom anywhere. We could not find it on... You can technically buy it, but we didn't want to buy it. We don't want to spend money on Mad Hot Ballsack. And there's no way to find it on streaming for free. And we couldn't even pirate it. No one cares about this movie enough to even pirate it, enough to even rip it online. That's how much no one gives a shit about it. So instead we had to spin the wheel again. We're like, okay, fuck it. I guess we're not talking about Mad Hot Ballroom. And which I'm kind of... I don't want to watch a documentary about inner city ballroom dancing. Inner city means black for my non-American viewers. It's just a nice word for black people. So we landed on the Paw Patrol. And we watched it. And it's a film. So I guess I could talk about my experience with the movie emotionally. Which is... I don't know. I liked it more than Nimona. Kat told... Again, when we were out with our friends the other day, seeing Asteroid City... They asked us, like, oh, you saw Nimona, what'd you think of it? And Kat was like, he hated it. I'm like, I don't hate it. I just don't like it. I don't dislike it. I just didn't like it. See the last episode for reasons about that. I had more fun watching the Paw Patrol movie because I felt like I had something to mock. There was something to deride. And also just there's a weird feeling that pervades the whole film. Like I'm watching something kind of wrong. I guess I can go into details. So I knew nothing about Paw Patrol or I knew that they were dogs and they do things. I assume they patrol and maybe rescue people. I think I saw there's like a firefighter one who's like a Dalmatian. there's the main guy is a police dog. I guess that they do, I don't know, I guess that they help people in need would be my guess. Before going into this, it's my best guess is they help people in need. And yeah, apparently that's basically what the show is. So they're all dogs, and they live in this place called Adventure Bay. So the film opens with a guy, a truck driver, almost getting into an accident, big like 18-wheeler on a bridge, and just like slams through the guard railing and is dangling over the edge of the bridge. And he sees a fisherman down below in the water, and he tells like, call the police or call the fire department, please. And the fisherman goes, we don't call the police, we call the Paw Patrol. And that was my first, what? Wait, what? You don't have like a publicly funded fire department or law enforcement? What is the Paw Patrol? Is the Paw Patrol like a privatized agency? Does this take place? What country does this take place in? That's so weird. The only people you can rely on is like a private company? Unless they're being tax funded, which is bizarre. If my tax dollars were going to paying a dog, I would move. I'm not raising my kids there. So a puppy. They're puppies, not even dogs. They're puppies. They're little babies. So, yeah, that's what the Paw Patrol is. They're a bunch of dogs, and they have these vehicles with little doodads and gadgets, and they go around helping people. And they're led by this little 10-year-old boy who they never explain, like, where he comes from or where he gets all of this technology. They have a gigantic tower. They have a giant tower with their logo. That this isn't just like a building that they're renting out for themselves. No, this is like custom built. There's like a garage in it. It's like a whole operation. Again, was this taxpayer funded? It's just there. Like, what are you going to do if they move out? Is it going to be like you're going to rework it into like a library or like an office building? What? So they have to go to, they live, this confused me. So they live in Adventure Bay. They have to go to Adventure City, which is different. I got them mixed up. They have to go to Adventure City, which is a totally different place. It's the big city because a guy who I kind of assumed was like an antagonist from the show, Mayor Humdinger is his name, who looks like the Monopoly Man, has been elected mayor of Adventure City, and they have to go stop him or something. I mean, technically he won by default. Like, the other person had to drop out of the race, but he did, like, win. Why is it such an urgent thing to go stop him? Well, you learn very quickly, because as soon as they get there, well, this is weird. So they get there, and there is immediately a gigantic and even bigger Paw Patrol tower, which, like, is that taxpayer funded? No. They walk in there and they're like, how did you get all the money to build this? And the little 10-year-old, I think his name is Ryder, goes, with Paw Patrol merchandise. And he holds up a t-shirt. So, like, no, they are absolutely privately funded. What the fuck? This is weird. I'm reading too much into this, which I understand. But that's part of the joke. So, you very quickly learn why they have to be on site, because Mayor Humdinger is like playing Roller Coaster Tycoon with the city. I forget what the first thing he does is. He has like this giant fireworks show where he sets off like 1,000 fireworks at once and causes like the town hall to burn down. And they have to like rescue a bunch of people. Then, like, the next day, he is somehow installed. There's, like, the shuttle, the train that goes throughout the city he has replaced one of the tracks with a triple loop-de-loop, like the fucking euthanasia coaster. And, like, it's not built properly, so it gets stuck. The train gets stuck upside down on the loop-de-loop, and they have to go save people. It's really weird. And I don't know, it's not a particularly interesting movie. But I learned a lot about Paw Patrol, which is apparently a massive, gigantic, unbelievably profitable franchise. And I think I understand why. It seems like the least offensive thing in the entire world. I watched a video after I randomly got recommended a video. It really does seem completely random, because we watched this on Kat's computer, and then I went home and I was just on YouTube, and I saw, like, it's called, like, The Dark Secret of Paw Patrol, which is by a YouTuber called, I believe, Skip Intro, something like that. And he has a series of videos on so-called copaganda, which is a term for media that depicts police officers and law enforcement in a positive light. I haven't watched the other videos in his series, but I actually quite enjoyed this because law enforcement is fucking stupid, and I hate them, and I hate the police. So, this video is pretty. I was kind of worried that it was just going to be taking shit way too seriously, but thankfully, so I feel like if you've been listening to this podcast for long enough, or watched enough of my videos, I feel like you have maybe caught on to a line of thinking that I hold, which is that when you're talking about something like a piece of media, I feel personally that if something was not if there wasn't a lot of thought put into something, overanalyzing it and taking it too seriously on its own terms is kind of stupid. Like me sitting here and talking about, like, privatization in the universe of Paw Patrol, and how it's weird that there's no police or firefighters or first responders in Adventure City, even though the Paw Patrol wasn't there until just now, is kind of weird. All that is, like, me just overthinking it for a bit. Like, that's a joke, right? And I think genuinely, if you were going to levy criticisms at a series like this, there would just kind of be... Honestly, I think it makes you out to be more of a fool, because, like, you're wasting time on it. You're wasting thought on it. But that's not to say there's nothing that you can analyze in these, in stupid shit like this. I think it's totally valid to analyze, to kind of think about these sorts of things in context, right? So take something dumb like some 80s toy commercial cartoon, those thinly veiled toy commercials. And a lot of them, they weren't trying to be, maybe the best of them hit on some interesting stuff every now and again with, like, effort. But most of them were just very cheap, low budget, low, substance kind of things that were just meant to shove toys in children's faces and assign characters to them so that they would want to buy them, or will ask their parents to buy them, more accurately. And, like, there's not a whole ton to read into there. They are not very ambitious storylines. However, I think you can take a step back and totally analyze things like Transformers or TMNT or Street Sharks in the context of, like, children's television and commercialism, or their influences on what they were influenced by, maybe, like, technical things with their production, how they fit into, like, a broader narrative of television or children's television. Like, there's a lot that you can actually talk about that I think is very worthwhile. It isn't just, I'm not just going to scoff at, like, oh, why would I ever think or consider that at all? Like, no, I think that's totally fair, right? So with something like Paw Patrol, which is also a huge advertisement for toys, come to think of it, What this video does is something that, like, he does the bit of, like, overanalyzing it for a joke, but then there's kind of like a majority of the video is spent on some stuff that I think is actually pretty interesting, which is, hey, okay, so, like, yeah, this is a dumb show for babies, but what kind of ideas and imagery does it have that it's displaying to children? What kind of ideas about the world and what kind of assumptions does it make that it sort of could imprint on a child? So things like, hey, there's a lot in that video about police dogs, because the main character, the ostensible main character of the show, Chase, which is a weird name to give a police dog character, a little weird, he's a police dog. And he's a German Shepherd police dog. So, like, police dogs kill people. And they're basically, like, just an extension of, like, police abuse. If you see a policeman with a dog, like, it's never a good thing. Like, it's always fucking bad, you know? Like, hey, did you know that, something I learned from this video, there have been multiple studies into the effectiveness of drug sniffer dogs in different continents, like totally unrelated studies, different parts of the world, and they both came back with about a 25% accuracy on actually detecting drugs. Yeah. Did you know that dogs are, like, really good at reading human beings, and that if their handler just kind of... Okay, that was weird, my recording paused. Anyway, if they just subtly gesture to, like, an area, say, inside your car, the dog will just be like, I'm going to start sniffing here because you're telling me to go sniff there, or I'm going to go sit here. But like, could they detect drugs? Yeah, probably. But it's so easy to manipulate. Well, I'm sorry, a police officer would never manipulate evidence so that they could shake down poor people for crimes that they didn't commit. They would never do that. They would never plant drugs on someone that they were arresting. They would never it's totally not a thing that police officers in the US can just stop you and say that you're suspected of owning property connected to a crime and then take your property and then never give it back and actually just steal money from you to pay themselves. Okay, that's weird. I don't know why this keeps happening. But the recording keeps stopping. Anyway, that never happens. That never happens, you know? Police dogs have not traditionally just been used to fucking maul people. Hey, did you know that police dogs are, like... the fuck was I gonna say? What was I gonna say? Hey, here's one thing. Did you know that police dogs die all the time? Not from, like... Not in altercations where someone, like, retaliates against them. No, they die because the fucking cops leave them in hot cars. I guess they're just really big Beatles fans. It's like the number one cause of death is, like, heat exhaustion amongst police dogs. Isn't that something? Isn't that crazy? Hey, Paw Patrol, guys! So, like, is Paw Patrol advocating for racism or the police? Hey, did you know that the police are not obligated to protect citizens at all? Did you know that if you, like, file a restraining order with someone, they just don't have the obligation to enforce it whatsoever? Did you know that the police's goal is actually just to protect property, namely city property, and to collect money for the city? So they'll only really help you if your interests align with the ones of the people who own shit, like, namely land. Yeah, that's like, you know police help you? You know police investigate murders because murder is bad for the economy? Sometimes. And then you're like, wow, that's crazy. Why did no one do anything? Why did no one act? It's because they're not obligated to. Did you know that police have, like, I might, as a Boy Scout, have better first aid training than most police officers, and they still won't administer first aid to someone because if they fuck it up or if the person still dies or gets injured in some way, they're worried about getting sued, and that might cost the city money. That might cost the city money of getting sued. So just let that person bleed out on the ground despite the fact that you have first aid training. Isn't that awesome? Paw Patrol. Isn't that so cool? Paw Patrol. So is Paw Patrol, you know, I mean, I don't even have to get into the weird race shit. Hey, you want to hear about some bad interactions I've had with police as, like, the whitest guy you've ever fucking seen in the world? I remember one time my mom and I were driving back home from something late at night. This was in Chicago, so you know it's going to be bad because Chicago cops are the fucking worst ever in the world. So we were driving back to our house, and we were parking next to it. It was around, like, I want to say 8, 9. It was after dark. And we didn't have a garage. It's no driveways in our area. No driveways, no garages in our area. So it's all street parking. And there was a cop car behind us, like a visibly marked cop car. And my mom had to do some parallel parking to fit into the like only available spot. And, you know, it's parallel parking at night on a street that isn't very large. It could maybe, fuck, that street, was it even two-way? Like, it wasn't very large. It wasn't very wide. So, like, it's gonna take a second, right? It might take 15, 20 seconds for her to get into this spot. Yeah, this fucking cop came over and just gave us a ticket. We were like, what? He's like, why are we getting a ticket? Bleh, fuck you. That was basically the response was you're obstructing us. What the fuck are you talking about? What? You're obstructing us. So we actually decided to go to the nearest police station and complain about it and say we shouldn't have to pay this ticket. And this guy behind the counter, this absolute just behemoth of a man. I don't know who he's protecting and serving. He's protecting his servings, if you know what I'm talking about. He just looks at us and he goes, maybe he was, they were undercover and they were following someone. Like, they weren't fucking undercover. There was no one around. There was nobody around that they were. Also, they were just in a marked police car. And he's like, we'll see what we could do. Yeah, guess what? Nothing ever happened. Why did we get the ticket? Because he was annoyed and it was easy money. It was easy money because you're in a fucking lower middle class at best neighborhood. You're in a poor ass neighborhood. And there's a single mother that you could squeeze some fucking cash out of for the city. That's why. Fucking law enforcement sucks my dick, dude. Don't come into the comments with like, well, I know there's good cops. I don't care. The problem is that you can't know. The problem is that it's not an exception. I've had so many bad interactions with police in my life, and I'm white as the driven snow. Blech. So when you get something like Paw Patrol, right, that's what we're talking about, Paw Patrol, which is like, hey, police dogs, they're super cool, and you should like them. And excuse me, when they're routinely used in like propaganda to make police officers more endearing. Oh, look at this cute dog. You should like them and be predisposed to thinking that they're cute and positive. And that they're really effective at what they do. Because look at Chase. Chase is a good police dog, and he upholds the law. That's what the police do, is, you know, child, is they uphold the law. You know, me personally, I honestly, I don't know if I would let my kid watch Paw Patrol, to be honest. It just looks like a shitty show. There was a lot in this video about the guy. So the guy watched the series itself. And it looks really bad. It's extremely cheap. I imagine that the production is just super crunched and they can't actually make it look good. They don't have the time to make it look good. Also, it's just a commercial product. Like, in the film, they get like, wow, we have this brand new Paw Patrol tower and these brand new vehicles and outfits. With these like Iron Man suit up sequences for these dogs. And I was watching this and I was like, this is a toy ad. These are all the new toys that you can go out and buy at the Target and the Toys R Us. Does that exist? And they don't exist in Canada anymore still. That you can go buy for your kids, or that your kids are going to be asking for you to get them. Because they want to be like the firefighter dog. And it's so blatant. It's so transparent. And I looked it up afterwards, and yeah, every single thing in this film has a toy. It's literally like in the Transformers movie when they killed off like half the cast so they could introduce a bunch of new toys. I wish they'd done that in this movie and all the fucking Paw Patrol toys. There's this one Paw Patrol member. I think it's I want to say it's the conservation one. He's green. That's his color. He's like a gray pup, and he's got green. I forget what his name is, but I looked at that and I'm like, this is the one for the furries. This looks like a furry character. He's got like one ear like a little bit torn up, and then the other one's down, like in like a little floppy down ear. And I was like, this is how a furry would design a character. He just looks like a horrifying plastic CG toy because he's in this show. Who are the other Paw Patrol members? There's the orange one who gets... I was watching him and I forgot that he was there. I think his name is Zuma. I forgot that he was there, and I was like, I saw him in a scene and I was like, has he had a line yet? Has that one had a line yet? The like brown one in the orange? And I don't think he had. I think he has a total of 3 lines in the movie, and it's the most generic thing ever. There's the fire dog Marshall, because Fire Marshall, I remember that. He's a Dalmatian, which is cute. And he... I don't know, I guess there's a really dark image in my mind, and it's not really that funny of a joke, but like the concept is kind of funny because of how fucked up it is, of like, the fire hoses, and was the Paw Patrol? Did the sheriff at Birmingham call in the fucking Paw Patrol, you think? It's not that funny. It's just kind of fucked up, but it's kind of funny. There's a joke there somewhere. There's the girl one named Sky, and she is in a plane in the sky, a helicopter. That's her thing. And I guess she does air rescue. And then there's a pit bull named Rubble, and Rubble was my favorite because he was the biggest fella. He's not very interesting because none of the characters are interesting, but he is the big fella, and he's the construction pup. There's like a new one. There's, I guess, a new character. It's like the Rugrats movie where we got to introduce a new character who's going to join the main cast, and her name is Liberty. I remember it's Liberty now. And she's the little wiener dog, which is cute. Kim Kardashian is in the movie for like one scene as a poodle. That's weird. I imagine that's because her kids liked the show. And it's very obvious that it's Kim Kardashian. It's very obvious once I'm like, that sounds like a celebrity voice. That sounds like a celebrity voice. I couldn't pin down what it was, but it just got that different quality to it. And yes, we looked it up, and it was indeed her. Overall, would I say that the Paw Patrol like promotes things like racism or police brutality or a police state? No, I feel like that's reading too far into it, but much like this video by Skip Intro, it has a lot of like things in it that just sort of normalize weird shit that the police are allowed to get away with. Like their omnipresence in all emergency cases. Why do the police have to show up to this? They're just gonna... Don't call the police unless you want someone to get shot, basically. Unless you're okay with someone getting shot. That's the rule of thumb. Don't Don't call them if someone is like gonna kill themselves, because the police will take care of it. They'll take care of it. Making it just seem like cool and normal of like using police dogs, and not like a really kind of fucked up thing that usually doesn't have to exist. Did you know that the Supreme Court ruled that a police dog like sniffing something out is basically grounds for arresting someone? Wow, are you telling me the Supreme Court is fucking stupid and someone should... I'm not going to finish that sentence. I was going to say something that promoted domestic terrorism. Okay. If someone, James Bond burgered the Supreme Court, I fucking hate the Supreme Court. I can't stand those fuckers. What a bunch of assholes. That's like one of my least favorite, like, emblematic things of like broken systems in my country. A bunch of unelected assholes who just get to decide everyone's rights, when actually it's just a game based off of who can get their president elected. And it's like a fucking video game strategy. It's like you're playing goddamn, like, I don't know, some kind of it's literally like you're playing a strategy game. You're like, why the fuck? Can we just be real? Can we James Bond burger the Supreme Court, please? That's my new euphemism for something that I can't say because I don't want to get put on a watch list. Yeah, Paw Patrol movie. It's fucking whatever. You can show it to your kids, I guess, if they like Paw Patrol. It's kind of just trite. I literally can't think of anything about it other than that it was kind of fun to poke fun at the whole time. It was more fun to make fun of than Nimona. Again, Nimona's not a bad movie. It's just didn't give me anything to work with. I was thinking about this the other day. I think Shaun the Sheep Farmageddon is a perfect film. I remember talking about it on the podcast before, but for some reason I was just thinking about it the other day. That's like a perfect movie. It has zero flaws, and everything about it is good. There's literally one asterisk, which is that the pop songs, of which there's only like 2, are a little unnecessary and a little weird. But besides that, it's like every single scene is entertaining or funny or heartwarming, and it moves the plot forward. It's genuinely a very funny movie. Go show your kids Shaun the Sheep. Don't show them Paw Patrol. Show them Shaun the Sheep Farmageddon. Probably the first movie is also good, I imagine. That's like a perfect film. I have nothing else to talk about this week. I am starting work on the next video, so that's cool. That's coolio. That's coolio la Julio. Thank you so much for the nice reception on recent videos. The last one I put out. That's been very, very cool. And you can check out... Should I just start, like, actually... I guess if you're curious about, like, my Patreon, and maybe I should just start plugging it a little better. If you donate to my Patreon, which is $10 a month... It doesn't say $10 a month, but it's $10 a month. It's weird. You can go read about it on the page. It's $10 a month. You get your name in the credits. You get access to the scripts and notes for every video that I make. And then also, for the last 2 videos, I've started this thing where I record a commentary track for the video. So if you ever wanted me to go in depth on like the video and what I think of it after making it and how I did certain things or what my reasoning was for something, kind of a little much for a very small YouTube channel. I feel like a little pretentious, but let me be pretentious. I've done a little creator commentary that I've been releasing on there, and maybe I think eventually I'll probably upload them all to the second channel, like after they've been out for a certain amount of time. But because I just don't like keeping stuff exclusive. But yeah, so Patreon and main channel and side channel, which I haven't done anything on in a bit because I don't have an idea for anything yet. I have no schedule for the side channel. Don't expect any kind of consistency out of that. Clips channel. Right. I forgot to make clips for the last one. Anyway, I'm going to buy it.